I'm Alexandra, 34 and freshly divorced. After 12 years with Ryan, I finally bought my first solo home, a modest ranch in Oak Hill Estates. My relationship with his family was always tense, especially with his sister Jessica. Last night my phone erupted with security alerts at 2 a.m. Groggy and confused, I opened the ADT app to see live footage of Jessica breaking through my back door. As I watched her slip inside my empty house, my hands trembled, part shock, part rage, and strangely part satisfaction. I finally had proof of what I'd always suspected. Before I get into this wild story, where are you watching from today? Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever dealt with toxic in-laws who went too far. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what happens next, because this home invasion was just the beginning of uncovering a family conspiracy I never saw coming. My story with Ryan began in college. I was a shy art student. He was the charismatic business major everyone gravitated toward. We married young, and I thought I'd found my forever person. But what I didn't realize was that marrying Ryan meant marrying his entire family, particularly his older sister Jessica. Jessica was 38, unmarried, and seemed to revolve her entire life around her family's business and personal affairs. From the beginning, there was tension between us. At first, it was small things. She'd repeat my ideas in family discussions, as if they were her own, adding just enough to make everyone praise her creativity. During holiday gatherings, she'd make subtle comments about my cooking, my clothes, my career choices as a graphic designer. "It's so cute that you draw for a living," she'd say, completely dismissing years of my professional work. Ryan's parents, Barbara and Thomas, weren't much better. They ran a successful real estate business and measured everyone's worth by their financial contributions to society. My artistic career never quite matched their standards. Barbara would constantly ask when I planned to grow up and get a real job, while Thomas would simply ignore me during family dinners, directing all conversation toward his son. Whenever I tried to address these issues with Ryan, he'd minimize my concerns. "That's just how Jessica is," he'd say. "She doesn't mean anything by it." Or, "My parents are from a different generation, they don't understand creative careers." His constant defense of his family created a wedge between us that grew wider with each passing year. The breaking point came when I discovered Ryan had been sharing our financial struggles with his family behind my back. During a particularly difficult period when I was between freelance contracts, Jessica approached me at a family barbecue with advice that mirrored private conversations I'd had with Ryan just days before. The betrayal of privacy was devastating. Our divorce wasn't as messy as some, but it wasn't clean either. After 12 years together, the court awarded me enough from our joint assets to put a down payment on a modest home. Ryan and his family seemed outraged that I'd received their money, though it was money I'd helped earn throughout our marriage. Strangely, after the divorce was finalized, Jessica started reaching out with seemingly supportive messages. "If you need anything, just call," she texted. Family is still family. Something about her sudden kindness felt off, but I was too emotionally exhausted to analyze it. I found a small 3-bedroom ranch home in a quiet neighborhood, about 30 minutes from my old life. The distance felt necessary, close enough to maintain my client relationships, but far enough to start fresh. The neighborhood had experienced some break-ins over the previous months, so on the recommendation of my realtor, I invested in an ADT security system with cameras at all entry points. In the whirlwind of moving, painting, and settling in, I completely forgot to mention my new security setup to anyone. Why would I? It wasn't something that naturally came up in conversation, and honestly, I was enjoying the peace of limited contact with Ryan's family. I never imagined that my forgetfulness would lead to catching Jessica in the act of breaking into my new sanctuary. But looking back, perhaps some part of me always knew they wouldn't let me go so easily. The shrill ping of consecutive notifications jolted me from a deep sleep. Disoriented and groggy, I fumbled for my phone on the nightstand, squinting at the sudden brightness of the screen. Motion detected at back door followed by back door entry detected. The timestamps showed it was 2:13 a.m. My first thought was that it must be a system malfunction. I'd only had the ADT system installed 3 weeks ago, and there had been a false alarm when a neighborhood cat triggered the motion sensor. Still half asleep, I opened the app to check the live feed from my backdoor camera. What I saw instantly cleared the fog from my brain. Jessica, dressed in all black with her blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, was carefully closing my back door behind her. She moved with purpose, scanning the kitchen with a small flashlight before proceeding further into my home. "What the hell?" I whispered to myself, now fully awake and sitting upright in bed. This wasn't a random break-in. This was my former sister-in-law deliberately entering my home in the middle of the night. I watched in stunned silence as she moved through my kitchen with surprising familiarity, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the refrigerator that even I sometimes forgot about. She wasn't fumbling or searching randomly, she seemed to know exactly where she was going. Had she been in my house before without my knowledge? My hands shaking, I called 911 and explained the situation. "There's someone in my house," I whispered. "I can see her on my security camera. It's my former sister-in-law." The dispatcher assured me officers were on their way and advised me to stay on the line. While waiting for the police, I continued watching Jessica's movements through the app, switching between camera views as she moved through my house. She went directly to my home office where she began rifling through papers on my desk. I watched as she took photos of documents with her phone methodically going through folders labeled financial and legal. When she opened my laptop and plugged in what looked like a USB drive, something snapped inside me. This wasn't just trespassing, this was a deliberate invasion of my privacy, my new life. The dispatcher's voice brought me back. "Officers are approaching your location. They'll enter from the front. Are you in a safe location?" "Yes," I confirmed. "I'm in my bedroom with the door locked." My bedroom was on the second floor, as far from the home office as possible. Through the bedroom window, I saw flashing lights approach silently. 2 police cruisers pulled up, and 4 officers emerged approaching my house with flashlights drawn. I switched back to the security feed just in time to see Jessica freeze as blue lights illuminated my living room windows. The officers announced themselves at the front door. Jessica's expression transformed from focused determination to panic as she frantically looked for an escape route. But it was too late. I heard muffled voices as the police entered using the spare key I had stored in a lockbox on my front porch. "Police, show yourself with your hands up." The command was clear even through the security app's audio. Jessica's response was pathetic. "This is a misunderstanding," she called out, her voice higher than normal. "I'm family, I was just checking on my sister-in-law." I quickly threw on a robe and crept downstairs as the officers secured Jessica. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, her eyes locked with mine, and I'll never forget the look on her face: shock, embarrassment, and underneath it all, a cold anger that sent chills down my spine. "Alex, thank God you're okay," she said, attempting to sound relieved. "I was so worried when you didn't answer my texts earlier. I came to check on you." "At 2 in the morning?" I asked incredulously. "By breaking in through the back door." One of the officers, a woman with a stern expression and Garcia on her badge, turned to me. "Ma'am, do you know this person?" "Yes," I confirmed. "This is Jessica Wilson, my former sister-in-law. We have no current relationship that would give her any reason to enter my home, especially in the middle of the night." "She had no permission to be here," Officer Garcia clarified. "Absolutely none." Jessica's face contorted with desperation. "Alex, please. This is ridiculous. I was worried about you. The family hasn't heard from you in days." "That doesn't give you the right to break into my house," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "And it certainly doesn't explain why you're going through my financial documents and accessing my computer." Officer Garcia glanced at the open laptop and scattered papers. "We're going to need to take her in for questioning," she said. Would you be willing to come to the station to provide a statement? Absolutely, I said, not taking my eyes off Jessica. As the officers led her away, Jessica looked back at me with an expression that made my blood run cold. You're going to regret this, Alex, she said quietly. You have no idea what you're doing. It wasn't until the police cars drove away Jessica securely in the back of one of them that I allowed myself to collapse onto my couch, trembling with the full realization of what had just happened. My home, my new beginning, had been violated by the family I thought I'd left behind. By morning, my phone was blowing up with notifications. 10 missed calls from Ryan, 8 from Barbara, 5 from Thomas, and dozens of text messages demanding to know why I had their precious Jessica arrested. I silenced my phone and tried to get a few hours of sleep, but my mind kept replaying the image of Jessica going through my personal documents. At 10 a.m., Ryan called again. This time, I answered. What the hell is wrong with you? He demanded, without preamble. Having Jessica arrested, are you insane? She broke into my house in the middle of the night, Ryan, I said calmly. What did you expect me to do? She was worried about you. You haven't been answering anyone's calls. That doesn't give her the right to break in, and it certainly doesn't explain why she was photographing my financial documents and trying to access my computer. His hesitation was brief, but noticeable. We're having a family meeting at my parents' house at noon. You need to be there to fix this mess. Under normal circumstances, I would have refused. But curiosity and a strange sense of confidence pushed me to agree. Fine. I'll be there. The Wilson family home was an imposing colonial in one of the city's most expensive neighborhoods. As I pulled into the circular driveway, I felt the familiar anxiety that always accompanied visits here, but today there was something else to resolve. Inside, they were waiting for me in the formal living room, a space reserved for serious discussions and interrogations of significant others deemed unworthy. Barbara and Thomas sat rigidly on their antique sofa, while Ryan paced by the fireplace. Jessica, who had been released on bail that morning, sat in an armchair, looking exhausted but defiant. Barbara spoke first. Alexandra, she said, using my full name, as she always did when displeased. I think you owe Jessica an apology. I almost laughed. I owe her an apology. She broke into my house. She was concerned about your well-being, Thomas interjected. You've been ignoring family communications. We're not family anymore, I said plainly. Ryan and I are divorced. I have no obligation to stay in touch with any of you. Jessica dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I was worried sick, she said, her voice trembling for effect. You've been so unstable since the divorce. I just wanted to make sure you weren't doing anything reckless, like what I challenged. What exactly were you looking for in my financial documents? Ryan stepped forward. That's enough, Alex. Jessica made a mistake in how she expressed her concern, but pressing charges is completely overboard. You need to drop them. No, I said, simply. The room went silent. Excuse me, Barbara's eyebrows shot up. I said no. Jessica didn't make a mistake. She deliberately broke into my house in the middle of the night and was going through my personal information. That's not concern, that's invasion of privacy at best, criminal activity at worst. You ungrateful little Thomas began, but I cut him off by pulling out my phone. Would you like to see the security footage? I asked, my finger hovering over the ADT app. Without waiting for a response, I played the video of Jessica's break-in on my phone and passed it around. They watched in silence as the footage clearly showed Jessica's methodical movements through my house, her careful examination of my documents, and her attempt to access my computer. This doesn't look like someone checking on a family member's welfare, I pointed out as I took my phone back. This looks like someone searching for something specific. I was just Jessica began, but Ryan interrupted. Turn your phone off, Alex. We need to discuss this as a family without you recording everything. I'm not recording anything, I said. But speaking of evidence, did you know the police found this in Jessica's bag? I pulled out a photocopy the detective had given me that morning, an inventory of items Jessica had been carrying, including a USB drive, a tool for picking locks, and a device I later learned was used for copying hard drives. Barbara gasped. Jessica Caroline Wilson, what on earth? For the first time, Jessica looked genuinely flustered. I can explain. I'm curious to hear this explanation too, I said. Because to me it seems like this wasn't your first visit to my new house. The guilty look that passed between Jessica and Ryan confirmed my suspicions before either could deny it. How many times have you been in my house without my knowledge? I demanded. Alex, you're being paranoid, Ryan tried, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Because things in my house have been moved. Items I specifically remember placing in certain locations were in different spots. I thought I was losing my mind, but it was you, wasn't it? I directed this at Jessica, whose face had gone pale. This is ridiculous, Thomas stood up. Alexandra, we took you into this family, supported you for years, and this is how you repay us, by trying to destroy Jessica's life with criminal charges. I didn't break into anyone's house, I said quietly. I didn't go through anyone's personal documents. Jessica did that. And based on your reactions, I'm guessing you all knew about it. The silence that followed was damning. I think we're done here, I said, standing up. I won't be dropping the charges. And if any of you come near my house again, I'll be filing for a restraining order. As I turned to leave, Ryan grabbed my arm. You have no idea what you're doing, he hissed. You think you can just take our money and walk away. In that moment, everything clicked. This wasn't about family concern, this was about the divorce settlement. They thought I had somehow hidden assets, or perhaps they were looking for a way to challenge the settlement altogether. I pulled my arm free. Touch me again and I'll add assault to the charges, I warned. Stay away from me, all of you. As I walked out the door, I heard Jessica's tearful voice. She's going to ruin everything. Driving away from the Wilson house, I felt simultaneously terrified and liberated. For the first time, I had stood up to all of them. But I also realized that this was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The day after the family confrontation, I took a personal day from work and spent hours reviewing all my security footage from the past month. What I found made my stomach turn. There were at least 2 other instances where Jessica had entered my home, once through the back door using what appeared to be a copied key, and once through a window she managed to unlock during her first visit. During these previous intrusions, she had spent considerable time in my home office going through files and accessing my computer. I hadn't noticed because she was careful to return everything almost exactly as she found it, almost but not perfectly. The slight discrepancies I'd noticed and dismissed as moving stress or forgetfulness suddenly made terrifying sense. I called Natalie, my friend from law school, who had helped me through my divorce. She arrived an hour later with lunch and her legal pad. This is serious, Alex, she said after viewing the footage. Breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, potentially computer fraud, depending on what she accessed. We're talking felony charges. Why would they do this? I asked, still struggling to understand the magnitude of what was happening. Natalie's expression was grim. What exactly did you get in the divorce settlement? Nothing extraordinary. The judge awarded me 40% of our joint assets since Ryan was the higher earner. I used most of it for the down payment on this house. Natalie tapped her pen thoughtfully. And Ryan didn't contest the division. He seemed fine with it during mediation. It was only afterward that things got weird. I think we need to push for full access to Jessica's phone records, and that USB drive they found on her, Natalie said. My guess is, they believe you have money or assets hidden somewhere. Detective Harris called later that afternoon. He was a veteran officer with a methodical approach that I found reassuring. Miss Cooper, we've been going through the items confiscated from Jessica Wilson, he explained. There's something I think you should see. Can you come to the station this afternoon? At the police station, Detective Harris showed me photographs recovered from Jessica's phone. They were images of my bank statements, tax returns, and most disturbingly, private emails between me and my divorce attorney. "She's been monitoring your communications," Detective Harris explained. "And there's more. We found text messages between Miss Wilson and your ex-husband discussing your finances." He showed me screenshots of conversations between Jessica and Ryan. "Ryan, any luck finding the accounts?" "Jessica, nothing yet. Her laptop has a password, but I'll try again next time." "Ryan, Mom and Dad are getting impatient. We know she hid money from the business. Keep looking." My hands shook as I read through dozens of similar exchanges. The business they referred to was Ryan's parents' real estate company, where I had worked part-time doing marketing for several years. I had never handled the finances, but apparently they believed otherwise. "I never hid any money," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The settlement was completely transparent. Detective Harris nodded. "I believe you, Miss Cooper. But the Wilsons seem convinced you have hidden assets. These texts suggest this has been going on since before your divorce was finalized." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about Jessica's jealousy or the family's disapproval of me. This was a coordinated effort, a conspiracy involving my ex-husband and his entire family to find money that didn't exist. "There's one more thing," Detective Harris said, sliding another document across the table. "We found this draft email on Jessica's phone. It was never sent, but it was addressed to your employer." The email was a fabricated complaint about my work ethics, claiming I had stolen client information and designs from my previous workplace. It was dated for next week. Jessica had been planning to sabotage my career next. "This goes beyond break-ins," Detective Harris said solemnly. "This appears to be a systematic attempt to harm you financially and professionally. I'd recommend maintaining normal contact with the family. Don't let them know what we've discovered. We may need more evidence to build a strong case." As I drove home, my mind raced with implications. Every interaction with Ryan's family over the years took on new meaning. Their disapproval, Jessica's competitiveness, even Ryan's defensiveness of them, it all seemed part of a pattern I had been too close to see. I was no longer just a divorcee starting over. I was someone being hunted by the people who were once supposed to be my family. The question was no longer why Jessica had broken into my house, but how far they were willing to go to get what they thought I had taken from them. 3 days after meeting with Detective Harris, I returned to work at Horizon Marketing, where I'd been a senior graphic designer for the past 8 years. My boss, Daniel, had been understanding about my personal day, especially when I explained it involved a police matter I couldn't discuss in detail. Around midday, Daniel called me into his office, his expression unusually stern. "Alex, we need to talk about the Westfield campaign," he said, gesturing for me to close the door. "What about it?" I asked. Westfield Industries was one of our biggest clients, and I'd spent weeks perfecting their new product campaign. "They called this morning. They're extremely unhappy with the final designs." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible." I triple-checked everything before submission, and their feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Daniel turned his monitor toward me. "This is what they received." I stared in disbelief at the images on screen. These weren't my designs, they were amateurish mock-ups with misaligned text, pixelated images, and an entirely wrong color scheme. Worse, they included inappropriate stock photos that bordered on offensive for a family-oriented company like Westfield. "I didn't create these," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "These aren't my designs. Someone's tampered with my work." Daniel looked skeptical. "They came from your email, Alex. Last night at 11:30 p.m. I was home asleep at 11:30. I never sent these." A horrible suspicion formed in my mind. "Can your IT department check where the email originated from?" Daniel seemed hesitant but made the call. An hour later, Marcus from IT confirmed my fears. "The email came from an external IP address," he explained, showing us the technical data. "Someone accessed Miss Cooper's work account remotely." "Can you trace the IP?" I asked already, suspecting the answer. Marcus nodded. It traces to a residential address in Oakwood Heights, Jessica's neighborhood. Daniel looked between us, confusion evident on his face. What's going on, Alex? I took a deep breath. Someone is trying to sabotage me. My former sister-in-law was arrested for breaking into my home a few days ago. She had devices that could have been used to steal my passwords. Daniel's expression shifted from skepticism to concern. This is serious. Corporate espionage is a criminal offense. I know, I said quietly. I've been working with the police already. Thankfully, I still had the original designs saved on an external drive at home, a habit I'd developed after a server crash years ago. I offered to retrieve them immediately and resubmit the correct versions to Westfield with an explanation about the security breach. As I was explaining the situation to Daniel, a commotion erupted in the office reception area. Through the glass walls of Daniel's office, I could see Jessica gesturing wildly at the receptionist. "That's her," I whispered to Daniel. "That's my former sister-in-law." Before Daniel could respond, Jessica spotted me and charged toward the office, pushing past startled colleagues. "There you are," she shouted, her face flushed with anger, or perhaps performance. "Everyone needs to know what kind of person you really are." Daniel stepped between us. "Ma'am, you need to leave immediately before I call security." "Do you know she's mentally unstable?" Jessica announced, loudly, ensuring everyone in the open plan office could hear. "She's been making up stories about our family, claiming persecution. She needs professional help, not enablers." My coworkers stared, some with concern, others with uncomfortable curiosity. Melissa from the design team approached cautiously. "Alex, do you need help?" she asked quietly. Jessica latched onto this. "Yes, she needs serious help. Our whole family is worried sick." "The only help I need," I said clearly, "is for someone to call the police. This woman was arrested for breaking into my home 3 days ago, and she's violating the temporary restraining order I filed yesterday." Jessica's face flickered with surprise. She clearly hadn't expected me to have already filed for protection. Daniel had already picked up his phone. "Security is on their way up, and I'm calling the police." "You're making a huge mistake," Jessica hissed at me. "Ryan was right about you. You're nothing but a vindictive liar." Security arrived and escorted a still shouting Jessica from the building. As they led her away, I noticed several colleagues recording the incident on their phones, evidence of Jessica's erratic behavior that would prove valuable later. Melissa stayed by my side as I sank into a chair, the adrenaline draining from my system. "I saw the whole thing," she said. "That woman is unhinged. Are you okay?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Later that afternoon, after giving another statement to the police and salvaging the Westfield campaign, Marcus from IT called me back to his office. "I did a deeper dive into your computer," he explained. "There was definitely unauthorized access, and not just to your email. Someone installed keylogging software on your workstation about 2 weeks ago. It's been recording everything you type, passwords, client information, everything." The timeline matched perfectly with Jessica's break-ins at my home. I wondered if she had visited my workplace as well, or if Ryan had helped her gain access. That evening, I met with James, an old college friend who now worked in cybersecurity. Over coffee at a cafe far from my usual haunts, I explained everything. "You need to assume all your accounts are compromised," he advised, his expression grave. "We need to change every password, set up 2-factor authentication, and check all your devices for spyware." For the next 3 hours, James helped me secure my digital life, new email, passwords, bank accounts, social media, everything. We discovered keylogging software on my home laptop as well, likely installed during one of Jessica's intrusions. "This is sophisticated harassment," James remarked as he removed the malicious program. "Most people don't go to these lengths for a simple divorce dispute." "What do they think you have?" "I wish I knew," I replied honestly. "But whatever it is, they're willing to destroy my reputation and career to find it." As I drove home that night, the reality of my situation hit me fully. This wasn't just about catching Jessica in the act of breaking in. I was facing a coordinated campaign to dismantle my life piece by piece. And somehow, I needed to stay one step ahead of people who had known me intimately for over a decade. 2 weeks after the incident at my workplace, I was finally beginning to feel like I had regained some control. The temporary restraining order against Jessica had been extended, and Detective Harris was building a case that now included the work email tampering. My boss Daniel had been surprisingly supportive after seeing the evidence, even offering to let me work remotely for a while. It was Saturday afternoon and I was enjoying a rare moment of peace watching my 6-year-old niece Lily draw pictures at my kitchen table. Lily was the daughter of Ryan's brother Michael and his wife Rachel. Unlike the rest of the Wilson family, Michael and Rachel had always been kind to me, keeping a respectful distance during the divorce. They knew I adored Lily and they still allowed me to babysit occasionally, believing family conflicts shouldn't affect Lily's relationship with her Aunt Alex. Lily was in the middle of explaining her elaborate unicorn drawing when the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I saw 2 people in professional attire standing on my porch. Something about their formal demeanor made me uneasy. "Lily, honey, keep drawing." "I'll be right back," I said, making sure she was settled before answering the door. The visitors introduced themselves as representatives from Child Protective Services. My heart sank as they explained they were following up on an anonymous report of concerning behavior involving my niece. "There must be some mistake," I said, keeping my voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "I'm just babysitting my niece for the afternoon. Her parents know she's here." "We understand, Miss Cooper," the female caseworker said. "But we're required to follow up on all reports. May we come in?" For the next hour, the caseworkers interviewed me and observed my interaction with Lily. They asked invasive questions about my mental health, whether I had violent tendencies, and if I ever left Lily unsupervised. They took notes on my home environment and asked to see where Lily slept during overnight visits. When they finally left, promising to follow up with Michael and Rachel, I called my brother-in-law immediately. "CPS just left my house," I said without preamble, when Michael answered. "What? Why would CPS be at your house?" He sounded genuinely confused. I explained what had happened, and Michael's confusion turned to anger. "This is ridiculous. Rachel and I have never had any concerns about Lily being with you. Someone made an anonymous report," I said, the pieces falling into place. "Michael, I think it might have been Jessica or your parents." There was a long pause. "Alex, I know things have been tense between you and the rest of the family, but that's a serious accusation. Jessica broke into my house, Michael. She's been trying to sabotage my job. This fits the pattern. Let me talk to Rachel and get back to you," he said, his voice tight. "We'll pick Lily up in an hour." When they arrived to collect Lily, both Michael and Rachel were polite but distant. Lily hugged me goodbye, oblivious to the tension between the adults. "We think it's best if Lily doesn't visit for a while," Rachel said quietly as they were leaving. "Just until things settle down." "You don't believe me," I realized, heartbreak evident in my voice. Michael looked uncomfortable. "It's not that we don't believe something happened, but Jessica and my parents are insisting you've been acting erratically since the divorce. The CPS visit seems to confirm their concerns. It confirms nothing, except that someone is trying to hurt me by using Lily," I argued. "We just need some time," Rachel said firmly. "We'll call you in a few weeks." As their car pulled away with Lily waving from the back seat, I felt something break inside me. They had found the perfect target, my relationship with the only member of Ryan's family I truly cared about. That night I fell into a deep depression. I'd been fighting so hard, but for what I was losing, everything that mattered: my reputation, my relationship with Lily, my sense of security. I didn't leave my bed for 2 days, ignoring calls from Natalie and Detective Harris. On the 3rd day, I forced myself to check my email and found a message from a neighbor I barely knew, expressing concern about rumors in the community. Apparently, Jessica had been talking to neighbors, suggesting I was unstable and potentially dangerous. When I finally ventured out to buy groceries, the cashier, who had always been friendly, barely made eye contact. At the local coffee shop, conversations stopped when I entered. Jessica's campaign to isolate me was working. The final blow came when I returned home one evening to find my car vandalized. Someone had scratched the word liar across the driver's side door. My neighbor's security camera had captured the incident. It was Jessica wearing a hoodie but clearly identifiable. I sat in my living room that night, surrounded by evidence of the systematic destruction of my life, the CPS report, emails from concerned acquaintances, photos of my vandalized car. For the first time since this began, I considered giving up. Maybe I should just move away, start over somewhere. Ryan and his family couldn't find me. In desperation, I called Dr. Chen, a therapist I had seen briefly during my divorce. "Alex, what you're describing sounds like a coordinated harassment campaign," she said after listening to my story. "This isn't normal divorce animosity. This is abuse." "I don't know if I can keep fighting," I admitted, tears streaming down my face. "They're winning." "They want you to feel this way," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Isolation is a classic abuse tactic. The question is, why are they so determined to break you?" "They think I have money from the business," I explained. "But I don't. The settlement was fair. The judge oversaw everything." "Then perhaps it's not about what they think you have," Dr. Chen suggested. "Perhaps it's about what they're afraid you know." Her words echoed in my mind long after our session ended. What could I possibly know that would make Ryan's family so desperate to discredit me? What had I seen or heard during my 12 years with them that posed a threat? As I sorted through memories of my time with the Wilsons, connections I hadn't made before started to form. The hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. The business trips Ryan took with his father that seemed to accomplish little. The way Barbara meticulously handled all the company's bookkeeping, refusing to let an outside accountant review their finances. I realized Dr. Chen was right. This wasn't about what they thought I had taken from them. This was about what I might know, even if I didn't realize I knew it. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of determination return. I picked up my phone and called Detective Harris. "I think I know why they're doing this," I said when he answered. "And I think I know how to stop them." The morning after my breakthrough with Dr. Chen, I made a decision that I had been avoiding for months. I called my estranged brother Kevin. We had drifted apart during my marriage to Ryan, mainly because Kevin had always been suspicious of the Wilson family's influence over me. "I need your help," I said when he answered, half expecting him to hang up. Instead, there was a pause followed by, "I'll be there tomorrow." True to his word, Kevin arrived the next day, his truck loaded with belongings. "I'm staying until this is over," he announced, dropping his duffel bag in my guest room. "No one messes with my little sister." Having Kevin's 6'2" presence in my house instantly made me feel safer. But more than physical protection, his unwavering belief in me began healing wounds I hadn't realized were still open. "I always knew those Wilsons were bad news," he said as I showed him the evidence I'd collected. "But this is beyond toxic, this is criminal." With Kevin settled in, I reached out to my mother Patricia next. Our relationship had become strained after she remarried and moved to Arizona 5 years ago. When I explained the situation, she immediately offered to fly out. "I'll be there this weekend," she said firmly. "And I'm bringing my checkbook. You shouldn't have to face legal expenses alone." While waiting for my mother's arrival, I met again with Natalie to develop a comprehensive documentation system. She helped me create a secure online database where I stored all evidence, security footage, email threats, photos of the vandalism witness, statements from colleagues, everything meticulously dated and cataloged. "We need to file for a permanent restraining order against not just Jessica but Ryan too," Natalie advised. "The text messages Detective Harris found prove he's equally involved in this harassment." The hearing was set for the following week. In preparation, Natalie and I gathered statements from my neighbors, colleagues, and even the security guard who had escorted Jessica from my workplace. Detective Harris provided an official police assessment of the pattern of harassment, which carried significant weight with the judge. Ryan appeared shocked when he was served with the restraining order petition. He clearly hadn't expected me to fight back so effectively, or to have gathered such compelling evidence. While the legal process moved forward, Detective Harris made a surprising discovery. "I've been reviewing similar cases," he told me during our weekly update. "There's a pattern here that matches 2 other harassment campaigns in the past 5 years, both involving women who divorced from wealthy families who owned businesses." "What happened in those cases?" Kevin asked, sitting protectively beside me. "In both instances, the women eventually gave up. One moved out of state, the other agreed to sign additional legal documents in exchange for being left alone." "What kind of documents?" I pressed. "Expanded confidentiality agreements," Detective Harris explained. "Far beyond the normal NDAs you might sign during employment." This information triggered another memory: Ryan asking me to sign additional paperwork in the final days of our divorce, which I had refused because my lawyer wasn't present. He had been unusually insistent, claiming it was standard procedure for anyone who had worked in the family business. "I think I know what they're afraid of," I said slowly. "It's not about hidden money, it's about what I might have seen while working for their real estate company." As we explored this theory, I received an unexpected message from Tara, a woman Ryan had dated briefly before me. We had never been close, but she had reached out after hearing about the restraining order filing from a mutual acquaintance. "The same thing happened to me," she wrote. "Not as extreme because we only dated for 6 months, but Ryan and Jessica spread rumors that I was unstable after I asked questions about some of the company's business practices." Over coffee, Tara shared her experience. "I noticed discrepancies in the property listings I was helping to photograph. The official square footage didn't match the actual measurements. When I mentioned it to Ryan, he got defensive and said I didn't understand real estate. The next week, Jessica started telling everyone I had been fired from my previous job for incompetence." This conversation with Tara led to a revelation. The Wilson real estate business might be involved in systematic fraud, inflating property values, hiding defects, or misrepresenting investments to clients. If true, it would explain their desperation to silence anyone who had been close enough to notice, especially someone like me who had worked on their marketing materials for years. My mother arrived that weekend as promised, bringing not only financial support but connections from her years as a paralegal. "My old boss Jeffrey specializes in real estate fraud," she explained over dinner. "He's agreed to review your case pro bono." With my growing support network, I began to feel the balance of power shifting. Kevin's presence deterred further vandalism. My mother's financial assistance relieved the pressure of mounting legal bills. Natalie's meticulous documentation built an ironclad case for the restraining orders. And Detective Harris continued investigating the Wilson family business with renewed focus. I also found unexpected support in an online community for survivors of divorce harassment. Through their forums, I connected with others who had faced similar campaigns of isolation and intimidation. Their strategies for recovery and self-protection became invaluable resources. Most surprisingly, several of Ryan's former friends reached out after hearing rumors about what was happening. Jordan, who had been Ryan's college roommate, called to share that he had distanced himself from Ryan years ago, due to concerns about his ethical behavior. He and his father once bragged about how they had convinced an elderly couple to sell their property for half its value, Jordan told me. "They thought it was clever business. I thought it was exploitation." Armed with mounting evidence and a growing circle of allies, I finally felt ready to confront the Wilsons on my terms. The restraining orders were granted, requiring both Ryan and Jessica to maintain at least 500 feet of distance from me, my home, and my workplace. But I knew legal restrictions alone wouldn't stop them. They had too much to lose if their business practices came to light. I needed leverage information they feared I might possess that could truly harm them. With help from Kevin, my mother, and James, the cybersecurity expert, I began reviewing every document, email, and file from my years working with the Wilson Real Estate Company. Somewhere in that mountain of information was the key to ending their harassment once and for all. "We've got them on the defensive now," Kevin observed as we worked late into the night. "They didn't expect you to fight back like this." For the first time since Jessica broke into my home, I allowed myself to believe that I might not just survive this ordeal, I might actually win. 3 days after the restraining orders were granted, I was driving home from a promising meeting with my mother's paralegal friend Jeffrey. He had identified several questionable practices in the Wilson real estate business, based on the marketing materials I had created for them over the years. The property descriptions don't match the public records, he had explained, pointing to discrepancies in square footage, zoning classifications, and improvement histories. This could indicate systematic fraud, especially if they used these inflated values to secure larger loans or investments. I was feeling cautiously optimistic as I navigated the evening traffic, mentally planning our next steps. That's when it happened. As I pressed the brake pedal to slow for a red light, the pedal went straight to the floor with no resistance. My car continued accelerating toward the intersection. Time seemed to slow as I processed what was happening. With the brake failure, I had seconds to react. I yanked the emergency brake while swerving onto the shoulder, narrowly avoiding a collision with cross traffic before crashing into a roadside ditch. The airbag deployment left me dazed but conscious. Bystanders rushed to help, someone called 911, and within minutes, emergency vehicles arrived. As paramedics loaded me into the ambulance, I managed to ask one of the police officers to check my car carefully. "It wasn't an accident," I whispered. "Someone tampered with my brakes." At the hospital, doctors diagnosed a mild concussion, whiplash, and various contusions, painful but not life-threatening. Kevin arrived shortly after, his face ashen with worry. "The police found evidence of brake line tampering," he confirmed, gripping my hand tightly. "This wasn't random, Alex. Someone deliberately cut the line almost through so it would fail after normal use." Detective Harris arrived later that evening to take my statement and inform me that the car had been impounded as evidence. He looked grim as he explained that the sabotage had been carefully executed, professional enough to ensure failure but amateur enough to maintain plausible deniability. "We'll run forensics, but these types of cases are difficult to prove without witnesses or camera footage," he admitted. I was kept overnight for observation, and the next morning brought an unexpected visitor, Jessica. Somehow, she had discovered I was hospitalized and managed to get past the nurse's station by claiming to be my sister. When I opened my eyes to see her standing at the foot of my bed, my first instinct was to press the call button. But curiosity stopped me. Why would she risk violating the restraining order so blatantly? "You look terrible," she said, not unkindly. "Such a shame about your accident." The emphasis on accident sent chills down my spine. "What do you want, Jessica?" I asked, my finger hovering near the call button. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "This has gone far enough, don't you think? All this drama, the police, the restraining orders, it's exhausting for everyone." "Someone tried to kill me," I stated plainly. Jessica waved dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic. If someone wanted you dead, you would be. This was just a warning." The casual admission stunned me. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, hoping to record her, but she noticed the movement. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she warned. "Things can always get worse, Alex. Much worse. Think about your mother, your brother. Think about Lily." The mention of my niece made my blood run cold. "Are you threatening my family?" "I'm offering you a way out," she corrected. "Drop everything, the charges, the restraining orders, the investigation. Sign the confidentiality agreement Ryan offered during the divorce, and this all goes away. You can keep your settlement money, keep your house. Just walk away and forget whatever you think you know." "And if I refuse?" Jessica's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Next time, it won't be just your brakes." Accidents happen all the time, Alex. To all kinds of people. Before I could respond, she turned and walked out, leaving me trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. I immediately reported the visit to the hospital security and called Detective Harris. While waiting for him to arrive, I received another unexpected visitor, Ryan. Unlike Jessica, he appeared genuinely distressed. Alex, thank God you're okay, he said, rushing to my bedside. When I heard about the accident— Stop, I interrupted. You're violating the restraining order just by being here. I don't care about that right now, he insisted. I had to make sure you were all right. Despite everything, I never wanted you to get hurt. His concern seemed authentic, making me wonder if he knew about the brake tampering. I decided to take a chance. Someone cut my brake line, Ryan. Was it you? The color drained from his face. What? No, I would never. Was it Jessica, your father, who in your family decided I needed to be silenced permanently? Ryan sank into the chair beside my bed, looking genuinely shaken. This has gotten completely out of hand. It was just supposed to be about finding the documents. What documents? I pressed. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from our marriage. Some files went missing after you left the company. Client information, property assessments, tax documents. My parents were convinced you took them as insurance. I never took anything, I said truthfully. I know that now, Ryan admitted. But by the time I figured it out, Jessica and my father had already— He trailed off. Already what, Ryan? He seemed to be wrestling with himself, torn between family loyalty and what remained of his conscience. Jessica was only supposed to search your house for the files, not install spyware or harass you. When that didn't work, my father escalated things. I told them to stop, but they wouldn't listen. And the brake line. Was that part of their escalation too? I swear I didn't know about that, Ryan said, looking me directly in the eyes. That crosses a line even Jessica wouldn't. The door opened, interrupting him, as Jessica herself walked in. Her confident expression faltered when she saw Ryan at my bedside. What are you doing here? She demanded. Then, noticing his distress, what have you told her? The truth, I answered for him. That this was never about hidden money. It's about covering up fraud in your family's business. Jessica's face hardened. Ryan, we need to leave. Now. I'm done with this, Ryan said, standing up. Someone could have died yesterday. Oh, grow up, Jessica snapped. She's fine. And she's been poking around in things that could destroy our entire family. What did you expect us to do? Not this, Ryan gestured toward my hospital bed. Never this. Their argument was interrupted by Detective Harris arriving with 2 uniformed officers. Jessica Wilson, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order, he announced. And Ryan Wilson, you're also in violation. As the officers read them their rights, I pressed the record button on my phone, capturing Jessica's indignant response. This is ridiculous. If she had just signed the papers and forgotten what she saw in those property files, none of this would have happened. Detective Harris raised an eyebrow at this inadvertent confession. Miss Wilson, I suggest you exercise your right to remain silent. As they were led away, Ryan looked back at me with an expression that seemed equal parts remorse and resignation. Whatever happened next, the Wilson family's united front had finally cracked. In that moment of strange victory, lying in a hospital bed with injuries from their attempt to silence me, I realized the worst was finally over. The truth was coming to light, and with it my chance to reclaim my life from those who had tried to destroy it. The weeks following the hospital confrontation unfolded like scenes from a legal drama I never wanted to star in. Jessica's recorded admission became a cornerstone of the prosecutor's case, providing context for the brake tampering incident that might otherwise have remained circumstantial. Faced with mounting evidence and Ryan's decision to cooperate with authorities, Jessica accepted a plea deal. In exchange for reduced charges, she provided detailed testimony about the family's harassment campaign and, more significantly, the fraudulent practices within the Wilson real estate business. The plea agreement spared me from testifying in court, something I was grateful for as I focused on physical recovery and emotional healing. My injuries from the car accident required weeks of physical therapy, during which I had ample time to reflect on the past and contemplate my future. Ryan faced less severe criminal charges due to his cooperation, but was not completely exonerated. His text messages discussing the break-ins and his knowledge of Jessica's actions made him legally complicit regardless of his last-minute change of heart. He received probation and community service, a lenient sentence that initially angered me, until I recognized that his testimony had been crucial in bringing the full truth to light. The most surprising development came from Barbara and Thomas Wilson. After the evidence against Jessica and Ryan became public, they requested a meeting through their attorney. Natalie accompanied me to a conference room at the courthouse where I came face to face with my former in-laws for the first time since the family confrontation months earlier. Thomas looked years older, the arrogance I remembered replaced by weary resignation. Barbara's perfect composure had crumbled, her hands trembling slightly as she arranged and rearranged the papers before her. Alexandra Thomas began using my full name but without the condescending tone I'd grown accustomed to. "We've come to offer our apology. What happened to you, what our family did was inexcusable." Barbara couldn't meet my eyes. "We were wrong. Terribly wrong. Not just about you but about many things." Their apology felt surreal after everything that had happened. Part of me wanted to reject it outright, to make them suffer as I had suffered. But another part recognized the hollow victory that would be. "Your children broke into my home, invaded my privacy, tried to destroy my career, and nearly killed me," I said calmly. "An apology doesn't erase that." "We know," Thomas acknowledged. "Nothing can undo what's been done. But we wanted you to hear directly from us that we've cooperated fully with the investigation into our business practices. The company will face the consequences of our actions, as it should." The investigation had uncovered years of inflated property valuations, hidden defects, and misleading investment schemes, exactly the kind of fraud I had inadvertently witnessed while creating their marketing materials. The Wilsons wouldn't face jail time due to their cooperation, but their business empire was crumbling under regulatory fines and civil lawsuits from former clients. "There's one more thing," Barbara added finally, looking up. "We've spoken with Michael and Rachel. They understand now that the accusations against you regarding Lily were fabricated. They wanted us to tell you they're sorry, and they hope you'll be part of Lily's life again." The mention of my niece brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Of all the losses I'd suffered during this ordeal, being separated from Lily had cut deepest. A week later, Michael called me directly. Our conversation was awkward at first, filled with long pauses and careful wording, but his remorse seemed genuine. "We should have believed you," he said simply. "I'm so sorry we didn't." The following weekend, Lily bounced into my newly renovated living room, chattering excitedly about school and friends as if our separation had never happened. Rachel hung back, clearly uncomfortable but making an effort. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. As the criminal and civil cases proceeded, I made a decision that surprised even me. I used part of my divorce settlement to lease a small commercial space and start my own design studio. Years of working for others had given me valuable skills and industry connections. Now, I wanted to build something entirely my own. The studio, Cooper Creative, opened with 3 clients I had maintained positive relationships with from my previous job. Daniel, my former boss, sent a beautiful arrangement of flowers on opening day with a note that read, "The most creative person I know deserves her own canvas. Proud of you." My brother Kevin, who had initially planned to stay only until the immediate danger passed, decided to relocate permanently. He found a position with a local construction company and moved into an apartment just 10 minutes from my house. Our weekly dinners became a cherished routine, rebuilding the sibling relationship that had atrophied during my marriage. My mother returned to Arizona but called regularly and visited every other month. During one of these visits, she made an observation that resonated deeply. "You know what strikes me, Alex? Throughout everything, you never became bitter. Cautious, yes. Protective of yourself, absolutely. But you didn't let them turn your heart hard. That's real strength." Her words made me reflect on my journey through therapy with Dr. Chen, who had helped me process the trauma of the past year. I had learned to set boundaries without building walls, to trust carefully, without closing myself off completely. The final piece of my healing came unexpectedly. Natalie invited me to join a support group for survivors of domestic abuse and harassment. Initially, I hesitated, feeling my experience wasn't comparable to what others had endured. But in that circle of women sharing their stories, I found profound understanding and solidarity. More importantly, I discovered that my experience could help others. My documentation system became a template for women gathering evidence against their abusers. My security protocols provided a blueprint for creating safer homes. My story offered hope that justice, while imperfect, was possible. One evening, almost exactly a year after Jessica broke into my home, I hosted a housewarming party in my completely renovated space. The renovation hadn't been merely cosmetic. I had replaced the floors Jessica had walked on, painted over the walls that had witnessed my vulnerability, transformed the office where she had violated my privacy. This was truly my home, now untainted by memories of intrusion. The guest list included people who had supported me throughout my ordeal: Kevin and his new girlfriend, my mother and her husband Natalie and her family, Melissa from my old office, James, who had secured my digital life, Detective Harris and his wife, and several members of my support group. Michael, Rachel, and Lily arrived bearing homemade cookies and cautious smiles. As I looked around at these people, some family by blood, others by choice, I realized how much stronger my support network had become through adversity. The Wilsons had tried to isolate me, to make me feel powerless and alone. Instead, they had inadvertently pushed me toward building deeper, more authentic connections. I didn't forget what happened. Forgetting would mean losing the lessons I had painfully learned. But I had found a way to carry those lessons without being weighed down by them. I had set boundaries without becoming imprisoned by fear. I had pursued justice without being consumed by vengeance. Standing in my kitchen, surrounded by genuine laughter and warmth, I finally felt the truth of what Dr. Chen had told me months earlier. Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls your life. I raised my glass in a toast to new beginnings, true friends, and the strength we never know we have until we need it. The journey hadn't been one I would have chosen, but the destination, this moment of peace and authentic connection, made the difficult path worthwhile. I was no longer defined by what had been done to me, but by how I had risen above it. And in that realization, I found the freedom I had been fighting for all along. What's the most shocking betrayal you've experienced from family or in-laws? Have you ever caught someone trying to sabotage your life or reputation? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and share with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in their struggles with toxic family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Stay strong, and I'll see you in the next video.